Welcome to The Explainer. You know, it's hard to imagine a world without it, but today we're pulling back the curtain on the one operating system that, for better or for worse, pretty much changed everything.
Yep, we're talking about Microsoft Windows. We're going to trace its entire wild 40-year journey, from a clunky add-on to the OS that literally put a personal computer in almost every home and office on the planet. And we're basing this whole story on a really fantastic, super detailed historical analysis by Nebojša Kostic over at n.techfocus.rs. Seriously, you should check it out. We'll drop a link at the end for you.
All right, let's get into it. You have to picture this. Our story kicks off in a world that was all about blinking green cursors on a black screen. A world of text, where you had to know these complicated commands just to get anything done. I mean, back then, computers were just intimidating for most people. But then came this totally revolutionary idea. What if you didn't have to type everything? What if you could just click? That was the promise of Windows 1.0. Now, it wasn't a full-blown OS, not really. It was more like a visual skin you put on top of the old MS-DOS. And it was super basic. The windows couldn't even overlap. They just sat next to each other like tiles on a floor. But even as just a proof of concept, you could see the future right there.
But then came Windows 3.1. And this is where things get real. Suddenly, it wasn't just a tech demo anymore, it was a legitimate tool. You had TrueType fonts, which was huge for anyone doing publishing, but you know what the real secret weapon was? Solitaire. I'm not kidding, it wasn't just there to waste time. It was this brilliant trick, a little Trojan horse to teach millions of people how to do this brand new, totally weird thing, dragging and dropping with a mouse.
Okay. Now we're jumping ahead to the moment when everything, and I mean everything, changed. This is when the PC stopped being just a thing for offices and became something that was actually in our homes.
Windows 95. Man, this was more than just an update. It was a full-on cultural event. It gave us the start menu, the taskbar, and this was huge. It had internet support baked right in, which is what really opened up the web for millions of people. Think about it. The basic way you get around your computer today, that entire workflow was pretty much invented right here.
So this whole era, it really laid the groundwork for the modern PC. You had Windows 95 giving us the interface we all know. Then Windows 98 comes along and makes USB a real plug-and-play standard, no more fiddling with drivers. And hey, even the, let's be honest, famously terrible Windows ME gave us System Restore, which is a feature that has saved all of us at some point, right?
And here's something really cool that was happening at the same time. This is when Microsoft made a very deliberate choice to turn Windows into a gaming beast. They created this thing called DirectX, which was basically a universal language for games to talk to all the different graphics and sound cards out there. And that one move, it cemented Windows as the absolute king of PC gaming, a crown it hasn't given up since.
So, the next chapter in our story has a classic three-act structure. It's got the epic search for stability, a pretty famous stumble, and then a massive comeback.
Windows XP. I mean, just looking at that wallpaper brings back memories, right? XP became an absolute legend, and for good reason. It was the first time Microsoft took its super stable, rock-solid NT engine, the stuff they used for serious business computers, and wrapped it in a friendly, colorful interface that anyone could use. The result was amazing. It was fast, it was compatible with everything, and it just didn't crash. It was so good it completely dominated for more than a decade.
But then came the follow-up, Vista, and You could call it a necessary failure. Look, it was super ambitious, right? It had this gorgeous glassy interface and a way tougher security system. But there was one huge problem. The computers in 2007 just couldn't handle it. It was painfully slow, and those constant security pop-ups, they made people absolutely furious. And then came the redemption, Windows 7. Everyone called it Vista done right, and that's exactly what it was. Microsoft basically took all the good ideas from Vista, but this time they made sure it actually ran well on the hardware people owned. It completely restored everyone's faith. It was fast, it was stable, it was beautiful. It was, finally, what Vista was supposed to have been all along.
All right, so just when things were going great, the entire world changed. Smartphones and tablets, especially the iPad, just exploded onto the scene, and suddenly Microsoft was having a massive identity crisis.
And their response to this was Windows 8. It was a huge, confusing gamble. You could almost feel the panic. They saw the iPad and basically threw out the entire desktop experience that billions of people were used to.
They got rid of the Start menu and replaced it with this full-screen, tile-based thing designed for touch. And for anyone still using a keyboard and a mouse, yeah, it was an absolute disaster.
So they had to hit the reset button. Hard. And that reset was Windows 10. First things first, they brought back the Start menu we all missed. But they cleverly mixed in some of those live tiles from Windows 8. But the biggest change was philosophical. They introduced this idea of Windows as a service. No more giant, disruptive new versions every 3 years. Instead, you just get a constant stream of updates, making the OS better over time.
And that brings us right up to today, to the modern era. And what's interesting now is that the OS isn't really just about what's on your desktop anymore. It's about 3 big things: intelligence, security, and the cloud.
So here we are with Windows 11, which is another huge shift. I mean, on the surface, you can see it's the biggest visual change since Windows 95, with everything all centered and modern. But the really big deal is what's underneath. It's all about security now. They brought in these super strict hardware rules, like your computer needing a special security chip, a TPM 2.0, and the whole point of that is just to build a much safer foundation from the ground up to fight off modern attacks.
But the really mind-bending stuff, the true evolution, isn't even happening on your computer anymore. The future of what Windows even is comes down to 2 big ideas: AI and the cloud.
Okay, first up is Copilot. This is a total change in how we interact with the machine. Instead of hunting through menus and clicking on icons, the idea is you just talk to it. You ask it in plain English for whatever you want. Hey, summarize this long email for me, or change my background to a picture of a mountain. It's a whole new way of doing things.
And then you've got Windows 365, which honestly is even wilder. They call it the Cloud PC, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Your whole computer, I'm talking the powerful processor, all your apps, all your files, it doesn't live on your desk. It lives on a giant Microsoft server somewhere. And you just stream it like a Netflix movie to any screen you're in front of. Could be a cheap laptop, an iPad, even a Mac.
So when you step back and look at the whole thing, it's just an incredible story, isn't it? What started as this little graphical shell to make DOS less scary has slowly, piece by piece, over 4 decades, turned into this incredibly complex AI-powered service that lives in the cloud. What a journey.
And hey, if you want to go even deeper on all this stuff, you absolutely have to read the original article that inspired this whole explainer. You can find it over at n.techfocus.rs.
And that really leaves us with one last big question. I mean, we've gone from a single window on a desktop to having our entire PC streamed from the cloud. After a 40-year ride like that, what does the whole idea of a computer even look like 10 years from now?